President, please be seated. The court is now back in session. The chamber would like to inform the parties that during the hearing of testimony of 2 TCW 867, the witness made a request through Visu for a support from TPO staff, that is Madame Sun Solida, who will sit next to the witness during her testimony. Court officer, please usher the witness as well as the TPO staff into the courtroom. President, good morning, Madam Witness. What is your name? Witness, my name is Myung Chandi. President, thank you. Madam Myung Chandi, when were you born? Answer, I was born in 1954. President, thank you. And where were you born? Answer, I was born in Tasraj village, Bati district, Takeo province, and it was in Jambok commune. Question, where is your current address? Answer, currently I live in Daum Rư village, Kandalstung district. Kandal province. Question, what is your current occupation? Answer, I lived with my children. Question, what are the names of your father and mother? Answer, my father is Chu Myung and my mother is Chia Yan. Question, are you married or are you a widow at present? Answer, I'm a widow. Question, do you have any children? And if so, how many? Answer: I have 4 children. Question: the greffier made an oral report this morning that to your best knowledge you are not related by blood or by law to any of the two accused, that is Nunchi and Kiew Sampon, or to any of the civil parties admitted in this case. Is this information correct? Answer: yes, that is correct. Question: and that you took an oath before the Iron Club's statue to the east of this courtroom before your appearance, is that correct? Answer: I took an oath already. President, thank you, and the Chamber would like to inform you now of your rights and obligations as a witness before the Chamber. Madam Myung Chandi, regarding your right as a witness in the proceedings before the Chamber, you may refuse to respond to any question or to make any comment which may incriminate you. That is your right against self-incrimination. As for your obligations as a witness in the proceedings before the Chamber, you must respond to any questions by the bench or relevant parties, except where your response or comment to those questions may incriminate you, as the Chamber has just informed you of your right as a witness. You must tell the truth that you have known, heard, seen, remembered, experienced, or observed directly about an event or occurrence relevant to the questions that the bench or parties pose to you. And Madam Myung Chandi, have you been interviewed by investigators of the Office of the Co-Investigating Judges? If so, how many times, when, and where? Answer: I was interviewed once in Ratanakiri province, and I cannot recall the date of that interview. Question: how long ago were you interviewed? Answer: it happened several years ago. Question: before your appearance, have you reviewed, read, or have it read aloud? That is the written record of your interview between you and the OCIJ investigators in order to refresh your memory. Answer: I read that WRI and I can recall parts of the content of that interview. Question: and to your best recollection, is the WRI consistent with what you provided to the OCIJ investigators in Ratanakiri province? Answer: the record of the interview is correct. President, thank you. Pursuant to Rule 91B of the ECCC internal rules, the Chamber gives the floor first to the co-prosecutors to put questions to Myung Chandi, and the combined time for the co-prosecutors and the lead co-lawyers is 2 sessions. You may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. and good morning parties in the courtroom. Good morning, Madam Witness Muang Chandi. I am Song Chawan, the Deputy Co-Prosecutor. I have a number of questions to put to you related to your experience and what you witnessed at the security center. Now, let me talk about something related to the facts at the security center. My first question is, where did you live before 17 April 1975, and what was your occupation? In 1975, I worked as a worker in the rubber plantation in village 4. Question. So you began your work at the rubber plantation, and when did you start working at the rubber plantation? Answer. I do not remember the exact year. Question. What was the names of the rubber plantation that was located in village 4? Could you tell us about its exact location, for example, village, commune, district, and province? It was located in Ratanakiri province in village 4, Banlung district of Ratanakiri province. Question. When you started your work at the rubber plantation, you worked with your husband or you worked with any of your relatives there? Answer. I worked with my husband, and none of our relatives worked with us, but I stay alone because my husband was sent to work in other villages. Question. I want to ask for your clarification that you said that you worked in the rubber plantation. So I want to know whether your husband worked somewhere else or in the same rubber plantation with you. Answer. He worked in the rubber plantation, but he was not in charge of taping the rubber. He was in charge of treating the rubber tree that had disease. So he went from one village to another to treat the disease that took place with rubber trees. Questions. Did you know how many workers who worked with you who were responsible for taping the rubber? Answer. There were many, and I could not remember how many there were at that time. Question. Was it more than 50, more than 60, or more than 100 of them working there? Answer. There were many. It was probably around 50 families. Question. Who was in charge of the rubber plantation? What is his or her name? The person in charge of the rubber plantation was known as Tum. He was supervising the union, and everyone in the village called him Tum.
គាត់គ្រប់គ្រងសហជីពឈ្មោះទុំ
Question. So the chief of the trade union was Tum. So what was his specific role? Was he the chief of the union or he held any other positions?
គាត់ទទួល
Answer. He was the chief and he was in charge of that rubber plantation. Question. Now let me move to the topic about your marriage. What was the name of your husband and when the marriage took place? Answer. I got married during the Khmer regime. At that time there was 2 or 3 couples who were arranged to get married, but I cannot recall the exact year when I got married. But I just want to tell you that I got married during Khmer Rouge regime. Question. My question to you is that you got married with your husband before you began your work at the rubber plantation or during that time?
មុនធ្វើចំការកស៊ូ
We got married before we worked at the rubber plantation. Question. What was your husband's name? Answer. His name is Maitol. Is your husband name Maitol or Pontol? Could you please clarify this? Answer. Pontol. Question. During the period when you were married with Pontol, did both of you have any children? Answer. We had 1 child, but the child passed away later on. Question. Now I will move to another new topic. So how was your marriage life with Pontol? Answer. We did not live together, we got divorced. Question. Now I move to an important topic related to your imprisonment. In your interview with the OCIG investigators, and in that interview you talked about the arrest of you. So I want you to elaborate on the events surrounding that arrest from the beginning before your arrest to the time when you were arrested. Answer. At that time I lived in village 4 and I was told that I needed to go to join a meeting. So we were asked to board the truck, and we had no idea where they were taking us to. The truck went through the forest, and I had no idea of anything. They told me that I needed to go to the meeting, so I simply followed the orders, and I saw almond. And when we arrived, we saw a building, and we disembarked from the truck at that place. Question. So at the time of your arrest, you were working at your rubber plantation in village 4. And how and where those people who came to arrest you came from, and how many of them came to arrest you? Answer. I did not know the people who came to ask me to go to the meeting. I was scared at that time and did not dare to look at their face. So I simply followed the order and got on the truck. I was so scared because those people had guns. I did not know who they were.
ខ្ញុំចង់យោងទៅនឹងចម្លើយដែលលោកស្រីបានធ្លាប់ឆ្លើយជាមួយនឹង
Based on your interviews given in Ratnagiri, in your answer number 1, when the interviewer asked you to describe the event when you were sent to the and you said that you were working in the rubber plantation in Phum Buon in Ban Lung district around here. I was not aware of and did not know what happened that led to my involvement. One day the village committee, apparently following the order of Tum, who was the chief of the trade union of the entire Ratnagiri province. Tum had black complexion, a large body with average height, called me and my husband to go to the meeting. End of quote. In your interview, you said that there was a village committee who came to ask you to the meeting, and the person was following the order of Tum. So could you tell us how many of the people who came to get you from the rubber plantation? Answer. The village chief came to tell me at the rubber plantation to go to the meeting, but I did not know how many people were at the truck. Question. You also said that they came to call you to the meeting by following the order from Tum. How did you know that they follow the order from Tum? Answer. The village chief told me that Tum ordered me to go to a meeting. Question. So when the village chief came to tell you about going to the meeting, did the village chief carry guns?
Did he?
Okay. Or did he come with people with guns? Answer. The village chief did not carry gun, but when we walked and arrived at the truck, I saw men with guns. Question. So when you left the rubber plantation, you had to walk toward the track. So how far was the distance between the rubber plantation and the track?
ពីចម្ងាយ
Answer. From my house to the track, it was 60 meters away. So it was so close. Question. When you arrived at the track, whose track was it and how many people were in the track? Answer. There were 2 or 3 families in the track. There were 3 families going with me from the trade union. Question. When you arrived at the track, you saw 3 families who were already there, or the 3 families you are talking about also included your family? Answer. The 3 families included my family. Question. When you arrived at the track, you saw men with guns. So what types of guns they carried? Answer. They were long guns, AK guns. Question. How many people were there among the 3 families you mentioned, and how many of them were men and how many were women? Answer. The 3 families included husband and wives. Their children were not taken along with them. Their children were at homes. So there were 3 men and 3 women among the 3 families. Question. What were the position or occupations or roles of the people on the track? I mean the other 2 families. Answer. I knew them all. They were all workers just like me. Question. You were from the same rubber plantation or from different rubber plantations? Answer. We were from the same rubber plantation. Question. When you were on the track, where did that track take you to? Answer. It took me to the area behind Bang Kansai. At that time, I did not know that specific location clearly. I just knew that it was behind Bang Kansai. Question. In the same document and in the same answer during the interview, you mentioned that it was somewhere near Okansai. So is that correct? Answer. I said that it was behind Ratanakiri Hospital, and that area was called Okansai, and the prison was called Okansai Prison. Question. So the truck left your house and went straight to Okansai Prison, or it stopped over along the way to the prison? Answer. It did not drop off any people along the way. It simply went straight to the destination. Question. Did you remember what time was it, or when you were asked to board the truck? Answer. It was around 2 o'clock. And when we arrived in O Kansai, it was around 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Question. Now I would like to talk about the time when you arrived at O Kansai prison. When you arrived there, where did the truck stop, and then what happened next? Answer. The truck did not enter the compound of the prison. It stopped outside the compound. But they required us to disembark the truck and walked to the building with tile roof, and we stayed there. And then they locked the door and required all the 3 families of us to stay there. But the men were separated and put in another building, and women were put in a different building. Question. When you entered the compound of the prison, did you witness any guards, and did those guards carry any weapons? Answer. I saw guards with guns, and I was so scared because I had no idea what would happen to my life. Would I be killed or what? And I saw buildings, and in each building there were people inside. So all of this picture frightened me. Question. When the men and women were separated and put into different buildings, could you tell us about the building that you were placed? Answer. I saw one building, and in that building there were people, 3 or 4 people chained to each other. And then another building I saw people who were also chained. And I saw guards open the door and gave them food to eat. So I had the idea that, oh, they were imprisoned. I sneaked a look, and I saw people were leg chained together. Question. How many people did you see who were leg chained? Answer. The building that I was placed, they put only women, and there were a few women who had already been there, and those women were not chained or shackled. Only the building where the men were placed, that the men were chained. Question. Could you tell us how many women who were placed in your building with you? Answer. There were 4 or 5 people. Question. Did you know them before you were sent there, or you did not know them at all? Answer. I knew only the women who went on the track with me to the prison, but for the women who had already been placed there, I did not know them. Question. Could you please tell the chamber about the building, for example, the width and the length and the features of the building? Answer. That building was 15 meters. It had a tile roof and zinc wall. And it was made from bamboo, and we slept on the bamboo bed. So all the 4 or 5 women who were placed there all slept on the bamboo bed, but we were not chained. There was guards outside who make sure that we would not escape. Question. Was your building locked?
Answer. Upon my first arrival, I was placed in a building where there was a lock. However, later on, I was moved to another building where the door was not locked, and there were walls to the side and to the back of the building. Question. You just said that after you made your observation, you realized that you were being detained. Can you tell the chamber that as to when you realized that you were imprisoned? Did you realize that upon the time that you got off the track, or at a later stage? Answer. After I got off the track, I knew that I was being sent to a prison. The location was isolated from where people lived, and I saw those small buildings with people inside. Then I knew that I was being imprisoned. Question. And upon realizing that, how did you feel? And did you have a chance to communicate with your husband before he was separated from you? Answer. We were separated immediately after we got out of the vehicle. Question. You said that you were scared. Can you tell us a little bit more why you felt scared at the time? Answer. When I arrived in the area, I realized that I would die. I did not know the reasons that I was sent there, and I thought that would be the end of my life. Question. During your detention in Ô Consigne prison, were you detained in one building, or were you transferred between buildings? Answer. I was housed in the building with the bamboo thatch roof, and I remained in the same building. Question: does it mean that you were detained in the same building, but you were placed in a separate cell or room where there was no lock at a later stage? Is my understanding correct? Answer: yes, that is correct. Later on, where I was detained didn't have a lock at the door. Question: and while you were detained there at the Okonsan Security Center, was there any at any stage that you were interrogated? Answer: one day I was sent to be interrogated. I was questioned about my native village, etc. Yes, I was interrogated. Questioned: do you recall or what questions were put to you, and what responses they required you to provide? Answer: I was questioned whether I had communicated with the June, and I said no. I did not have anything to do with the June. Question: were you interrogated in your cell or were you interrogated elsewhere? Answer: I was sent for interrogation in a separate room. Question: can you describe to the chamber the interrogation room? Did you know people who were present in that room? Answer: I was sent to that room, and there was only one person who interrogated me, and then there was a guard who was posting outside the room. I did not know them. Question: when you were in the interrogation room, what was your observation? Were there any tools in the room for the purpose of the interrogation? Were you threatened? Were you tortured so that you would respond to the questions? Answer: during my interrogation, I was not threatened. I was asked questions and I responded to those questions accordingly. I saw a rift and I saw electricity cable in that room. Question: besides you, that is, you were interrogated, did you know if other inmates were also interrogated, and if so, were they tortured during their interrogations? Answer: we was interrogated one after another. However, I did not know who was tortured or who was raped or who was electrocuted. I'd like to refresh your memory by referring to your written record of interview with the investigator at Ratanakiri province. That is your written record. of E3/9354 at question answer number 4, you made the following response. They called us to be interrogated one by one. They questioned me where is your birth village, and they pressed me on whether I had communicated with the June. I still answered the same thing, that I had not communicated with the June. The interrogators did not bully, hit me. I did not know the names and the faces of those interrogators because I was too scared. They interrogated me only once, and there were 2 interrogators, and there were armed guards near the place. The interrogation place was a closed small building that had walls, and it was located about 30 meters apart from other buildings. Inside that building, I saw things like a rattan weaving strings, or something called ribs, which were used to hit the cows or sticks, as well as the electric wires. Later on, I asked the prison inmates, and they said that they had been ripped or electrocuted. As for me, I told them that I was not hit. End of quote. I have 2 things that I need a clarification from you. You have just said that there was only 1 interrogator and there was a guard posting outside. However, in your interview in Ratanakiri province, you said that there were 2 interrogators. Could you try to recall whether there was 1 or 2 interrogators in the room? Answer. Maybe I feel a bit excited and I cannot recall what happened, and in fact the statement is correct. And just to remind you, that interview took place several years ago, and now I feel a little bit excited and overwhelmed, so my response may not as clear as what I stated in my previous statement, and I apologize for that, and I confirmed my previous statement. Question, thank you for that. And there is another point that I need your clarification, since I see there is a discrepancy. Can you try to recall whether those inmates were tortured? As you just said that they were not, but in your statement you said that they were either ripped or electrocuted. So were they ripped or electrocuted? Answer, it did happen, because when they came back, they told me that some said they were electrocuted. And I told them back that I was not electrocuted, and I was not threatened during my interrogation, and I did not know, maybe we were from different backgrounds or something. I did not know. I was questioned whether I had any communication with the June, and I kept responding that no, other inmates were tortured. Question, you said some were ripped or electrocuted. Can you tell the chamber how many of them who told you that they were either ripped or electrocuted during the interrogation, and were they all women, or there were other males as well? Answer, they were men. As for women, they were not mistreated. Question, those men who were tortured, did they tell you what questions they were interrogated on? Answer, no. We did not discuss about those questions. I only met them briefly, and in fact, it was the wives who were detained with me who told me that their husbands were tortured. That is, they were electrocuted, for example, during their interrogation. It was not as simple as I went to see them and asked whether they were tortured or not. We were not allowed to meet. And in fact, I learned this from their wives who spoke through their husbands. They said that some of the husbands were raped or electrocuted during the interrogation. Question: so those wives who saw their husbands tortured or electrocuted during the interrogation, were they detained in the same building where you were detained? Or were you detained elsewhere and you met them only while you work outside? With President Witness, please hold on, and Councillor Copper, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I object to the formulation of this question because I understand the testimony to be that the witness is talking about double hearsay. It's the men only telling the wives and then the wives subsequently telling the witness. So it's not that the women actually saw the alleged mistreatment or torture. So we're having a double hearsay situation.
National Co-Prosecutor, Mr. President, I'd like to respond to the objection by the Defense Counsel. The witness said that at the time the wives saw their husbands being mistreated, and probably that happened after they returned from the interrogation room. Anyhow, I'd like to get the clarification from the witness. Madam Witness, in order to clarify this point, I'd like to put a question to you. You said there was a discussion about the torture after those people were interrogated, and that the wives of those tortured husbands told you about their husbands. Did those wives witness the torture of their husbands? And if not, how did they know that their husbands were tortured during the interrogation? Answer: the interrogation room was not far from where we were detained, and when the husband came out of the room, the wife saw him. So of course, when people was tortured, we could see that the way he walked was different from the normal way that he walked. So the wife realized that her husband was tortured. And after I was told about that, I said that I was not tortured during my interrogation. And I said that I told the interrogator the truth. And then those wives said maybe their husbands were asked serious questions, because after they left the interrogation room, the wives could observe that the husbands walked in an abnormal way. So they concluded that their husbands were tortured during the interrogation. And the wives who were detained in the same building spoke to one another about their husband being tortured, and that's how I learned that those men were tortured. Question: when the wives of those male prisoners who were tortured, who told you about their husbands, did they tell you immediately after the husbands were returned from the interrogation room? Answer. It happened after the husbands left the interrogation room, because I also could see the husbands were sent out from the interrogation room, and the wives who were detained with me speaking about their husbands being tortured. Question. And those wives who saw their husbands tortured and told you about that, could you observe how they felt? Were they scared? Were they concerned? Answer. Of course, it was natural that we were scared when we were living there, but what could we do? Question. And besides the events that you have just described, did you ever witness or did you know that any other people were tortured? Answer. I did not witness any other tortures, and I did not witness any torture in that room. Question. I'd like now to move on to another topic that is in relation to the detention of the ethnic minority people, as you described in your written record of interview. In that interview, you said that there were 20 to 30 people who were of ethnic minority were detained. Can you elaborate a bit more in relation to that group of ethnic minority when they returned at the detention center? For example, how did they arrive and how many of them? Answer. While I was in that building, I saw a group of 10 to 20 Charai people who were tied to a single string in a file, and they were placed. Some were placed in the building that I was detained. Some had young children. Some had infants. And 2 or 3 weeks after, they were told that they would be returned to their village. Question. When you saw those group of Charai people, can you try to describe the number of them again? Is it 10 to 20 or 20 to 30 when they got of the vehicle? Answer. I did not know where they got off the vehicle. However, I saw them being walked into the building in a single file. I could say that there were 10 to 20 of them, although I do not know the exact figure, while I saw them being walked in a single file. And they were detained in the building where I was detained. Question. This Charai group who was tied in a single file, and they were placed in your building, and a while ago you said that only women were detained in your building. Were those Charai people all women or girls? Answer. Only women were detained in the building where I was detained. Question. So were those people all women? And if so, were there any pregnant women, young infant? Answer. There were toddlers who could walk a little bit or who could sit a little bit. However, there were no young babies. Question. I'd like to refer again to your written record of interview at question answer number 6. You said that the ethnic minority people were tied up in a single file. Some were carrying their children, some were walking with their children, and they were all female. There were 20 to 30 of them, and they were later on detained in the same building that I was detained. Unquote. Free translation. I have 2 points that I'd like to get your confirmation. In that record, you said that there were 20 to 30 of them. However, a while ago, you said that there were only 10 to 20. Please try to recall which one is the correct figure. Answer. There were actually 20 to 30 of them, including men, and later on, the men were separated, and only women were placed in my building, and those women amounted to between 10 to 20. Question. Thank you. Also, you just mentioned that there were no young babies. However, in your previous statement that there were some children whose mothers carried them. Can you tell whether they were very young babies, or could you tell the age of those children? President, witness, please observe the microphone. Witness. There were about 3 children in the building, and there was a toddler who could walk, and then there was another young infant who could sit, and then there was also another young toddler who could walk if the mother held hand. Question. The women and the children who were housed in your building, were they chained or were they not? After they were placed in that building. Answer. When they got off the vehicle, they were not chained. However, they were tied, their arm was tied, and the tie remained there while they were detained in the building for about 4 to 10 days, and after that they removed the rope. As in our case, we were not tied with any rope. Question. What about the young children that you refer to? Were they also tied, or only the mothers were tied? Answer. The children were not tied, only the mothers were. Questioned. What was your observation of the clothes that those women were wearing? Answer. Those ethnic people wore their ethnic clothing, and of course their clothing was different from the way the Khmer people wore. They wore their skirt in a similar fashion to a scarf, which was not sewn, and their shirts were partly torn, and they did not have any extra set of clothing with them. Question. Did you know from which area they were brought? They were brought. And after they came to the building that I was detained, I asked them about that, and they said that they lived in the area of the Vietnamese-Cambodian border. That's the area where the Charai ethnic people lived. Question. You said that they were of Charai ethnicity. How did you know that they were Charai? Answer. When I lived in Ratanakiri, I knew that ethnic people spoke different language. For example, the Tumpun group spoke differently from the Laotian group. I could identify the way they spoke. And the Charai people spoke their own accent, which was different from the Tumpun group. So I could make that distinction that they were the Charai people who spoke in a similar way as the Laotian or the Thai people speak. Question. So besides your observation of the way they spoke, did you actually speak to them or ask them a question? And so I did not dare ask them questions. However, we were close to one another. We could see one another, but I did not dare ask them any questions since there was also a guard outside. Answer. Question rather. In your interview at question answer number 9, and allow me to quote it, you stated, after you were asked whether the ethnic minorities who came to stay in the building with you, what ethnicities they were, and you said that when we stayed together, I knew that those people were Charai ethnicities in Ratanakiri near the Vietnamese border, and you made mention that they lived near the Vietnamese border. And that you could distinguish the way they spoke. But here you said that you questioned each other, or that we questioned each other. Can you tell the court whether you yourself involved in the questioning one another, or you only observe them questioning each other? Answer. They spoke amongst themselves, and they said that they were Charai people from the area near the Vietnamese border. And of course, they spoke the Charai language to one another, and that gave me a conclusion that they were the Charai people. Question, Mr. President, I move on to another topic. However, it is about the time for our lunch break. President, thank you. Let me now change for our lunch break, and we shall resume after our lunch break at 1:30. Court officer, please assist the witness during the break time and invite her as well as the TPO staff back into the courtroom this afternoon at 1:30. Security personnel, you are started to take Kyu Sampon to the waiting room downstairs and have him returned to attend the proceedings this afternoon before 1:30. The court is now in recess.